Hi, this is Jake Peckman here with KJ Singh.
Yeah.
About to talk about Life of Pi. So, KJ, what do you think about Pi's upbringing?
Okay,
And
yeah. I definitely think that his upbringing in Pondicherry was definitely a big influence on his life, and it really helped build the foundation for his passion for zoology and also religion. And I think that just him like growing up in pretty much the backyard of a zoo, his father's zoo, really allowed him to like spend time with the animals, and even like there's quotes from the novel that suggest that he would wake up instead of like hearing a regular alarm like normal people, he would hear like the lions roaring in the morning.
Mhm.
So I think that's really what helped him build that passion and what kind of transferred into like what he would do for the rest of his life.
Mhm. Well, I also think just the town itself is very significant because it used to be like a capital of a French colony, and that just allowed for a lot of different like religions and cultures to come together, which
Yeah.
allowed him to kind of explore more of his religious identity, and that's kind of how he ends up being kind of Muslim, Christian, and Hindu at the
Yeah.
same time, which is kind of
Exactly.
interesting. Yeah. So what about his name?
Yeah, so I thought his name was especially interesting because even though it was his uncle, or at least who he referred to as his uncle or Mamaji, was like named him P Singh because
Hmm.
it was like this famous pool in France where he was like able to like kind of just practice his swimming and stuff.
Yeah.
And I thought that it really like went beyond that, especially when he made his own nickname, because people would like mispronounce it and they would make fun
Yeah.
of him.
Yeah.
And I thought that when he like shortened his name to Pi, it wasn't just that it was like this mathematical construct of like just like 3.14 that's like everyone pretty much knows who like took like basic math.
Hmm.
But I think it's more of just like how like pi is an irrational number, and how like even though we can like come up with this long list of like numbers to like determine like what it is, it like we'll never be able to comprehend how far it goes, and it's just like infinite. I think that sort of like represents how his identity is sort of like unknowable in a sense,
Hmm.
and how he has this like complexity to his character that's sort of like you can see throughout the novel, especially when he suffers a tragedy and the
Yeah.
ship sinking.
It's a very interesting point, KJ. Well, well spoken. um.
So, yeah. Okay, so Jake, what do you think about how like the because like sort of like the author switches between like the italicized passages in the like book versus like
Yeah.
just like Pi telling it from his like perspective. How do you think that sort of like storytelling um narrative sort of like builds the like progression in the plot, and like sort of like mainly in the end when he gives like two different interpretations of what happened?
Yeah, I think it's just kind of once like storytelling, like usually when someone tells a story of something that happened, they'll
Mhm.
remember every little detail. They kind of
Yeah.
exaggerate a lot of what he does.
Mhm.
So I think like that adds on to like just the like how you don't really know if he's telling the truth like about the tiger and everything and all the
Mhm.
animals.
Yeah.
Like it seems so far out there, but you know, and then there's the story that's a lot more logical, but also like a lot darker and
Yeah.
just like
Certainly.
what you like wouldn't want in a story. But it's
Mhm.
like, but which one do you believe? And, it kind of gives you a range of options that makes them both very believable. But just the fact that like the story with the tiger has so much significance in like religion, it just it helps. It just makes it a better story, and it just kind of gets you thinking too. Just
Mhm. Yeah, kind of to like add on to that, I think that what you're getting at is just it's sort of like they give the two like Japanese investigators like two
Mhm.
different like explanations, or Pi does, and one of them is like the darker one that you say like the where like the humans are involved and they kind of just like resort to like cannibalism and
Mm-hmm.
these sort of like horrible like behaviors that you would like never even think about doing
Mm-hmm.
unless you were put in such a like difficult situation. But in the end, they end up like, I thought it was like cool is that in the end they end up putting in their report that
Yeah.
like he spent his entire time, like he survived that treacherous journey with like a tiger.
Yeah.
And I thought that they chose to like the storytelling aspect is powerful in that like the Japanese like guys, they chose to believe the story that was more compelling and more like moving and sort of just like, even though we don't really know like what exactly happened, that's sort of just what happens when you
Mm-hmm.
tell a story, is that it's subjective and that like anyone can see it, interpret it however they want. And yeah, I think that that sort of really builds like the progression in the novel.
Yeah, I agree with that, definitely.
What do you think about how like his ability to sort of like find like a reconciliation point between like religion and like science, even though they're like two kind of conflicting schools of thought? How do you think that him being able to find that like middle point between them really like contributed to like his journey and sort of like even after his journey?
Well, I mean, he, of course, like with the whole tiger thing, like,
Mm-hmm.
he believed his father after he showed him the tiger killing the goat that like tigers are dangerous and they don't have a soul. Like, even though he kind of deep down believed that they did because he kind of saw it in his eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And just on the boat, like, he's very cautious, and I think that helps him out in the beginning,
Mm-hmm.
definitely. But then as the story progresses and he gets like continuously more lost at sea, like he realizes that like him and the tiger both kind of realize that like they need each other to survive.
Yeah.
And I think that's just a very like just kind of relates to
Yeah.
everything. And also religion, I feel like it really helped him survive out at sea. It just gave him a lot of hope
Yeah,
and faith that someone else was out there watching over him. And especially when like he came across the island, he really saw it as a sign that he like really needed to get back home, and it really motivated him to survive and get back to land.
Yeah, just the whole aspect of like him being positive and like optimistic the whole journey, even though he had to like kind of betray his own like go past his like boundaries, like his moral principles.
Mm-hmm.
And also just like him being able to like train the tiger and not like attack him, because he knew that the tiger would easily overpower him and could easily kill him at any moment, but he chose, like he applied his knowledge very wisely and was able to like train him with the whistle and make sure that they helped each other and it was like a mutually beneficial relationship.
Yeah.
And then one thing that I think is like probably the biggest theme is like the tiger symbol. So what do you think about, like, do you think that the tiger is sort of like a projection of his like animalistic side or sort of his like neat or like survivalist side?
Yeah, I think it definitely is. It's like even like in the second story he tells, he portrays himself as a tiger just because like yeah, he's a tiger. But I also think the tiger is also a symbol of like fear.
Yeah.
Because throughout the novel, like he grows up being afraid of tigers and what they can do, and he just finds like, yet he still like finds a peace in it when he's like, as the story progresses, he finds kind of peace in Richard Parker, and I think that's very interesting how it can go so quickly from being just deathly afraid of something to just like loving it.
Yeah, and then also just like when they arrive to like the island in Mexico, they like the tiger doesn't even like bid farewell or anything. He kind of just like leaves and goes into the jungle. I think that was really like poignant because it sort of like shows that maybe that's the part of his like that side of him, like the animalistic side, the like survivalist side that's willing to put anything on the line to survive, is that part that is like cut off from him once he finds like civilization.
Yeah.
And at that point he can kind of return to his like civilized side, and that's sort of, I think it's just like two sides of him, and one side is like the darker side of like humanity, then the other side is the more civilized side. And yeah, it sort of just ties everything up very like in a very neat way.
Yeah, it uses a lot of the themes of like religion and science, just the way he's able to connect with the tiger not just through like his bond with it spiritually, but like also through like training it. So like he's able to use everything and come to one. I think that's just a big part of who Pi is. He's able to use all these different things and just bring it all together.
Yeah, all skill sets.
It's very interesting. Well, that's all the time we have today. Singin' Peckman out.